our Senior Vice President of News and Programming, Lee Harris. Lee, you got something good for us today.
Yeah, we have a new Washington correspondent who works for our worldwide news network. Like many of the people who have joined us, she previously worked for CBS. That is Stacy Lyn. She's based in Washington, and she's joining us here this morning on Cats and Friends, filling in for Sid and Friends for the very first time. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning. Such a pleasure to be on with you guys.
And I'd like you to meet our owner and chief bottle washer, John Katzimatidis. You can hear him every hour of the day on WABC.
I'm always on. I can't sleep at night. I'm on at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
He tried to crash my show one day, and I said, "No, John, this is my hour."
Yeah.
And the bad news is, John.
Take a nap.
The bad news is, John now has your phone number.
Right, exactly.
Stacy, any hot news from Washington today? We're looking for hot news.
There's always hot news in Washington, of course. President actually doesn't have any public events in town today because he's heading to Reading, Pennsylvania. He'll be there this afternoon, delivering remarks at a truck manufacturing plant. That's around 2 p.m. Eastern time, and the speech is focusing on American manufacturing, the domestic trucking industry. But of course, everyone is buzzing in Washington about, the president's comments on the reflecting pool. We can't get away from that, and the paint and the algae blooms and he says it's not the result of the big makeover, the $16.5 million makeover. And he's claiming he has some evidence of vandalism to the reflecting pool. We've noticed in Washington that the administration has bumped up law enforcement around it. You're seeing National Guard members, U.S. Marshals Service members are around. Other law enforcement agencies are down, kind of patrolling by the National Mall as well. And we hear there have been some arrests made. They're also ticketing people that, try to dip their fingers in and touch it, touching, the water with their hands to get a little bit of history there. So we're watching that. Something else big in Washington today. Of course, Congress, we're following this bipartisan bill, an actual bipartisan bill passed in Washington. Yeah. It is true. It is an overwhelmingly passed sweeping housing affordability bill. So Senate passed it last night. It now goes to the House. House is expected to pass it very quickly, and it should head to the president's desk probably by tomorrow or a little bit later on this week. So watching that as well. Of course, there's some big events in Washington coming up this week, including the Great American State Fair, and President Trump's expected to headline the kickoff event tomorrow night for that, kind of looking into what to expect. I know that they said the MAHA movement is part of what we'll see at this Great American State Fair, but healthy eating and fair food doesn't quite go together. So still anticipating a lot of fried food on a stick. At least we can hope.
Well, please. Stacy Lyn, this is Jake Novak. First of all, and I give you a papal dispensation. This will not conflict with the rules of bias and reporting. Can we please make a public service announcement to everyone? Please do not walk in, vandalize, or go anywhere near reflecting pools. The last person we allowed to do it was Robin Wright Penn as Jenny in Forrest Gump when she wades into the Lincoln Memorial. I don't even know if that was the real Lincoln Memorial, but if you're not Robin Wright Penn in Forrest Gump, please do not walk into the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Do not touch it. It's not for this, no touching. This is not. But all kidding aside, another thing that we're looking at in D.C. this week, and I know that it's one of those things. Any minute now, we could get some of these very big Supreme Court decisions, including the one about birthright citizenship, the one about whether or not President Trump can legally fire Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve governor. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk a little bit. Listen, you're a reporter in the field. Talk a little bit about how you have to pivot there. Suddenly, we're asking you to go from covering political movements and the way votes are going, and suddenly you got to become Alan Dershowitz or a Felix Frankfurter. I mean, you got to be ready for these kinds of things, don't you?
Yeah, and the Supreme Court cases get very, very weedy, very inside baseball, very quick. And so my job, obviously, is to check out what the big cases are and when they do come down with rulings and try to make it sound, understandable to everyday people, because people don't want to hear all the nitty gritty and details. But Supreme Court has some big cases, and there's about, I think, 19 more rulings that they need to get to before early July. So they have a whole lot on their plate. And we do understand that this morning around 10 a.m. is when first rulings are supposed to come out. They don't ahead of time tell us what exactly they will rule on for the day. So we kind of follow along to see what is going to happen. But like you said, some big cases that we're kind of waiting for, and we will pivot to if necessary.
Stacy Lyn, another question now. Now, this is serious because I used to live and work in Washington, D.C. That's another one of my addresses, Fernando. And
wow, I can't believe it.
So listen, it is a changing city. Ever since the George W. Bush administration, it has been booming and booming with a lot of construction, with a lot of building up. And also, so what's it like to actually work there? Now, first of all, the one thing I've noticed is there are good restaurants in Washington, D.C. now. That was not the case in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s because no one's from there. Hardly anyone actually who works there grew up there, and you need ethnic communities to create good restaurants. But what's it like doing radio reporting out of Washington, D.C. and living? I mean, I assume you're living either in the district or a nearby suburb. You don't have to give us your address. You can do that later.
Right. But I will say nothing is going to trump New York when it comes to restaurants. But you are absolutely correct. D.C. is like ever evolving. And I think, like you said, all these transplants that are moving in and working here and around the area are always looking for, good food and food that reflects maybe their heritage and culture. And you are seeing more and more pockets of that around the city, which is great. It's a great thing. It is definitely a growing and thriving market. It was kind of worrisome when a lot of the federal governments, were downsizing. And, even through COVID, when people, were working from home and then didn't come back into the office on how that would work. But yeah, indeed, right now, it does feel like it's booming once again and things are thriving. The construction, like you said, is always a challenge. Getting in and around the district, whether you're visiting, whether you're working here, whether you're, just kind of in and out for, one day during the week or so is always a challenge. You're always seeing construction. They're always trying to beautify the city a little bit more. And it's definitely a challenge. Metro, obviously, the way to go if you are trying to get around.
Right,
Stacy, this is, I'm sorry, Lee. Stacy, this is Fernando Mateo. Welcome to the WABC family.
Thank you.
We're here with All-State Jake. I think he's lived in every state. But first of all,
no arrest warrants in any of those states, by the way, none.
First of all, your voice is very soothing. It's very, very nice to listen to. And are you a DC person, or do you come from another state?
I grew up in Maryland and have always lived in either the D.C. area or Maryland. I moved for one job way back in my 20s. I moved up to Massachusetts. I lived on Cape Cod, and I worked in radio up there for a brief amount of time and then got pulled back into this area. And obviously the news world in D.C. is always always something going on. So always work in this area.
Please report the good things that the president is doing. Make us all aware of what's going on in D.C. and how the GOP and the Republican Party, led by President Trump, is delivering for America. Everything we hear is always negative stuff. We don't hear about all of the good things that he is doing. And I'd hope that, you're going to report some of those good things.
Absolutely. Two sides to every story, and we need to deliver the news to the people. That's
all right, that is Stacy Lyn, our new Washington correspondent for the Worldwide News Network. She brings decades of experience, John, in that position, and we are very happy to have her here.
But she sounds like she's only 29.
Maybe she is.
Thinking that. I love that.
That's why I didn't get into hard numbers. We don't want people doing the backwards math on that. But overall, the important thing to know is she really knows what she's doing. She knows where the bodies are buried, and she'll get to them.
Yes.
And we're not going to ask you how much you weigh either. Don't worry. We're not going to do that.
You never ask a woman her age or weight.
I noticed that on the college rosters, on the college teams, they have the weights for the male players, but not for the female. I mean, come on. Right. I mean, whatever. Well, there you go. This is Stacy Lyn. Best of luck to you, and thanks for joining the team here on the Worldwide News Network. This is Sid and Friends in the Morning. It's the Cats and Friends Takeover Day 3. When we come back...
Day 2!
No, we didn't start on Friday. We started on Friday. Only day 2 for you, Fernando.
I was out of it. You didn't invite me on Friday.
You're included in that.
You forgot the initiation fee.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?